Welcome to the 197th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Well, update. Next race is Thrill in the Hills, north of Atlanta. This is going to be the peak week, and then I get to do a little bit of a taper. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Get a little bit more done on a Saturday, except for a long run. So long runs have been going good. Did 18 miles last week, so everything's feeling pretty good. Continued my weight workouts. I'll do that up until the end, but just taper the volume. I'm using Cliff gels for the run and Huma gels. I'm not sponsored, but they sit well with me, so that's what I'll probably be doing, and just water as far as that goes. Then next up after that will be the Asheville Vine to Vineyard Challenge with a 13-mile race on Saturday and a full marathon on Sunday. And then we'll round it out in April with the Mendocino Ultra. But before and in the middle of all that, we're having our 4th annual Charlotte County Plant-Based Nutrition Conference, and that is March 30th. And a little change in the venue, or I guess in the speaker lineup. My strength coach, Nathan Meinerich, has taken a new job. I'll hold off on announcing where that is, but it's going to prohibit him from being at the conference. So Eric O'Gray has graciously accepted an invitation to come down and speak about his book and his life-changing story when he met Petey, his rescue dog. And if you haven't listened to that episode on our podcast, please check that out on Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. I had an interview with Eric about last year when his book came out. The book's name is Walking with Petey. It's a great book, and he's doing great things with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So look forward to having him down at the conference, as well as Addie Dulaney Meinerich, myself, and Dr. Alan Goldhammer. So it should be a great day, plant-based breakfast and lunch, salt, sugar, oil-free. It's an intimate setting at the Twin House Golf and Country Club so that you get to answer your questions. We'll have books from both Alan and Eric. We'll have some vendors as well. Mama Says will be down. So it'll be a great conference, a great positive day. You don't have to worry about picking something plant-based from the menu. It's there. The day before, Eddie and I will be doing some discounted consults. So if you'd like a consult with us in person, get on the website pretty quick. Those are going fast. We'll do those on Friday. So there's a limited number of those. You can get your tickets on eventbrite.com, but there's a link from our webpage. So I'll put that in the show notes, drdulaney.com, DoctorDulaney.com, and there'll be a link to Eventbrite to get your tickets for the conference and the consultations if you'd like. So, looking forward to it. Everything's moving right along. January is almost over. It seems like, once January is over, things go really quick. I know when I used to live up north, I used to think about the winter and just had 1 month down. Here in Florida, we're having a little bit of winter. We're having some mornings in the low 40s. I think tomorrow morning is going to be 42 for my long run. So that's about as cold as it gets down here. So it's not affecting my garden or the fruit trees too much. So that's a great thing. Mangoes are still in bloom. Tomatoes, peppers, it's going good. I have some cabbage, cauliflower. Those things all kind of like a little bit of cool weather. We've had a little bit of rain here and there, and just enough to keep things going. So it's all good. This past week in nutrition class, I mentioned that we did menus for a whole week, and one of the dishes that one of the members came up with was a salad with beets, apple, parsley, and onion. The beets were in a vinegar and hot pepper, or at least mine were. When I make beets in the Instant Pot, and then I put them in a mason jar with some vinegar and Thai chili pepper, and I let them sit there and marinate. So I used those beets as well as an apple and parsley and onions, and diced the beets and apples up really good. And that was a delicious salad. Again, nitric oxide producing beets and nitric oxide producing parsley, anti-cancer properties from the red onion, and lots of vitamin C and phytonutrients from the apple. So great nutritious salad, tasty. And I did that with the mushroom walnut burger, so that was a good dinner one night, and then we had the beet salad as a side for another night. So that was good. Highly recommended that. And we did carrot dogs in our level 1 nutrition class this week with corn tortillas. A lot of times, people get caught up with what kind of bun am I gonna use, because the traditional white hot dog bun is nasty with full of additives and all that kind of stuff. You can get an Ezekiel bun, but sometimes the bun takes over the hot dog. So these homemade corn tortillas are really nice. And we topped the carrot dogs with sauerkraut and relish and mustard. So it made a really good carrot dog. A lot of good feedback from people that grew up eating hot dogs. Yeah, I could eat this. And we have some people in level 1 that have young children, and so they're excited about making the corn tortillas and carrot dogs for their kids. I also hear a lot of excuses in the office of why things don't go right. Why people can't stay on the path of plant-based nutrition. We refer to it as falling off the wagon. When people just kind of get sidesteps, and there are a lot of excuses and reasons why people get sidetracked. And and a lot of people are frustrated, because they have a condition, they have a lifestyle disease, and they feel like maybe why did it happen to me? And why do I have to make this change when other people don't have to make this change? And the reality of it is, the other people have issues. You just, we all think that, with, I guess, social media, people post the best of the best. And we don't see what happens behind, their door and in their medicine cabinet. So a lot of people have health problems that they kind of keep to themselves, or maybe they even avoid going to the doctor in the first place, so they don't even know their health problems. But we do know that the risk factors for things like, coronary artery disease and autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis and colitis and multiple sclerosis, they're all the same. The same as for cancers, high cholesterol, high-fat diet, animal protein. All these risk factors are the same. And but the beauty of it is, changing to a plant-based diet can also eliminate the risk factors for a lot of illnesses. So if you're changing your diet to a plant-based nutrition to lower your blood pressure, you're also going to lower your risk for multiple sclerosis and dementia and a lot of cancers. So, you get more bang for your buck. It's like one-stop shopping. You change your diet and you really make yourself healthy on a whole lot of different fronts. But sometimes, life gets in the way, and at some point, I don't know, we give up trying very easy. And I was thinking about this, why people give up so easy on things as an adult as opposed to a child. And if you think about a child's taking their first steps, they fall down, they get up, they fall down, and they give up. And they never just give up and sit down. Everybody eventually learns to walk or move themselves in some way. Unless they have some sort of, physical disability. But kids never give up trying. And even children that have physical disabilities, when they were born with them, they overcome them so much more readily than adults, because they keep trying, and they giving up is really not an issue. They keep moving. And it seems like, saying that I failed or I can't is pretty much a learned behavior over time. And I don't know if it's just the accumulation of difficult moments that people tend to learn to give up. But, giving up on being plant-based is, nobody cannot not do it. We can all become plant-based. There's nobody allergic to vegetables and fruits. And, most countries are now coming out with dietary guidelines to say, first and foremost, eat plants, vegetables, fruit, whole grain. Everybody agrees on that. So we can all do that. There's no reason. It's just a matter of how you transition to a complete plant-based diet. And I have a few excuses of the week. Traveling is a big excuse. People going different places, and they say they can't get plant-based food, no oil, no salt, no sugar food. But the reality of it is you can. Traveling becomes an excuse not to. You have to maybe look a little harder. You may have to pick your recipe, your restaurants a little bit more. But it's always an option, and especially if you're really doing this for your health and to make a transition, and it shows to other people that it's really important to you that you're sticking to your plant-based nutrition. It's just not a fad that you do when you're home and you're bored, but you do it when you're traveling. You do it at home, and you do it when you're going out. So that's not really that great of an excuse. I had several people blame their husbands and their spouses this week. And again, you can't control what another adult does, but you can control what you do. And the easy adage is, if your husband smokes, do you smoke? It's hard to quit if you both have smoked, but certainly if you don't smoke, you're not likely to start smoking if your spouse smokes just because they do. So you have to be your own lighthouse and your own, steer your own ship, and they may come along and they may not, but it's worth, you've got to, again, if you believe in it and you believe it should be done, then you have to set the example and be plant-based. And then again, visitors coming in to visit. Florida is a great place in the wintertime to come visit. So anybody that has a house down here, people, find long-lost relatives that want to come down. And everybody wants to show them a good time, take them to Disney World, take them to the beach. And, of course, that also means taking them to touristy-type restaurants, fried seafood, and the like. And people expect that. But again, if you're trying to stay healthy, then you have to. There's just nothing in those restaurants that is healthy, or they're not healthy options for you or anybody else. So this is again a time to demonstrate just what good food is, and make some of these great dishes that are out there and available. That are plant-based without salt, sugar, or oil. I got asked, today about, people have a really big sweet tooth, and then you make a dessert without sugar, then they don't like it. Add fruit to it. Add, fruit on the side of one of your plant-based desserts. Certainly the sorbets that you make in your blender with bananas and blueberries or mango. I mean, those are really, really great. You can even put some cacao nibs on top, and it's hard for somebody to knock something like that. So, be brave. Showcase your plant-based nutrition when you get visitors. Stay tough. And of course, the other excuses as far as exercise, and I understand you people up north that have, 6 feet of snow. If you're going outside, it's exercise to just get your stuff on and your coat out and going out and shoveling snow and carrying wood in. If you have a fireplace, that's good exercise. It does, that substitutes pretty good for the gym. But we're down here in Florida, and it's not too cold to go out. Nobody's ever, got hypothermic for an hour walk outside at 40 degrees, with a coat on. So, my locals down here in Florida have no reason to keep their exercise program going through the winter. And, it's funny, down in Florida, sometimes people say they exercise less than when they did up north, and I'm not quite sure because we have so many areas, and it's another reason to come down for a conference, but walking paths and beaches to run on, and places to kayak. So there are all kinds of activities down here that you can do all year round. But if you're up north, do a different activity in the wintertime, whether it's skiing, cross-country skiing. Dress up, dress for the weather, and get out, and you'll feel better for it. So don't use the excuse that it's too cold. It's never too cold to go skiing if you're at a ski resort. So you can go, if your house is where you live it's winter and you have snow, make your own exercise with going outside activities. One of the concepts that I like to talk about is kind of having a game plan. And one of the game plans that I really like is your state of mind and the story you tell yourself, and what's your strategy for going forward. And your state is where you are. I had somebody call about the practice today, and they want to become more healthy, and they don't want to die young, and they don't want to have lifestyle diseases. But they also aren't plant-based at all and don't know much about cooking plant-based. And so they were worried that if they joined my wellness practice that they'd have to be an expert in being plant-based. And that couldn't be more further from the truth, because most of us have not started as a very, very healthy plant-based eater. Dr. Goldhammer is probably who's coming to our conference, has probably been had the best nutrition plan for the longest of anybody I've known. I think he became completely plant-based without sugar, oil, or salt back when he was in high school. But most of us have transitioned as an adult, and I grew up in West Virginia, and I tell my patients, I've eaten about everything that they've eaten. We had sausage and biscuits and gravy and pizza and cheese and ice cream and all those things that people eat on a standard American diet. But that doesn't make them right. But that's where I started. And so your state is kind of where you started. What are you eating now? And be realistic. I've heard people say that they kind of stray every couple of days. But if you stray every couple of days and it takes your immune system and your endocrine system to get your glucose or your immune system back in track, that can be a third of a year or a fourth of a year that you've strayed or had a problem. So, be honest with yourself. Where are you in this plant-based journey? Do you still eat meat? Do you still eat cheese? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're vegan, but you eat a lot of vegan junk food. Maybe you just have a bunch of oil. Maybe you turn your head when you go someplace and there's eggs or butter or dairy. Or you turn your head when you go to somebody's house and you eat what they eat. So that's kind of where you are, and that's what your state is. And then, your story is somewhat about how you get in your own way. Why do you do those things? Why do you, when you go out with your friends, all of a sudden you're not plant-based and you revert back to what they're eating? Is it because you want to fit in? You don't want to answer any questions? You want to still have one foot in both camps, so that you can, there's a little voice inside that says, if you just do that once in a while, it'll be okay. But the reality of it is it won't be okay. You keep, your cells keep aging, you keep getting inflammation, and it accumulates over time. So, and it's no way that you can keep track of how much you digress. So, so what's your story as far as what's keeping you from progressing along the curve to a better, more nutritious plant-based diet? Some people have thoughts about their likes and dislikes of food, maybe from their childhood years where things were mushy, or things were undercooked or over-seasoned, or you didn't tolerate them. People say they're intolerant to eating peppers sometime, but the reality of it is they're intolerant of oil that they've had associated with the peppers, and the peppers what they kind of burp up, but it's really the oil that causes all the grief in their stomach. So a lot of people aren't really sure about their intolerances, but it's a story. They say, I can't eat soy. And the reality of it is most people, they can't eat soy. There are true soy allergies out there, but, are you eating soy sauce? Are you eating things with breading because that has soy isolated protein in it? So, maybe you're getting soy places and you're actually tolerating more than you think so. You just don't like the idea of tofu or tempeh, and it may just be the way you prepared it. So find out why you think that, that's your story and what's in your road. I can't run because my knees have always hurt in the past. They're bone on bone when I've got an x-ray. But the reality of it is there's always somebody out there in worse physical condition than you are, doing more exercise than you are. And maybe your knees hurt because your running form was bad. Maybe your knees hurt because you try to do too much too fast. So, look at your story, see what's getting in the way, and then what's your story that what's your strategy for what would you like to accomplish? What would be your goals, and not just to I'd like to be healthier, or I'd like to be more, and I'd like to do more exercise. You have to be specific. What are you going to do today to make things a little bit better? And what's your benchmark of the day? Because once you know your benchmark of today, that's easy to accomplish. Day by day. Just trying, the idea of just going to try harder today, that really leaves you a big blank space to do anything you want. I tried. That's pretty much a cop out. So have specifics, and then if you don't reach those specifics, or you stray from those specifics, you can always try, do that again tomorrow. Put that on your list and analyze. Well, what was the story? What tripped you up? And wait till you accomplish that goal to accomplish the next goal. But if you keep putting, your strategy is the exact same thing, and you have the same, you follow the same exact way, then you got to change and go around things a little bit different. We all get into ruts of things we do. Friday nights, sometimes people, that's their go out night. Maybe, as an example, you eat out at Applebee's every Friday night. And the story is, well, you're too tired to cook at the end of the week, and you just want to enjoy yourself and go out there. And so, what do you do when you get there? Why do you do that? It's usually, one, you don't have to cook, but two, you sit down, you start. Most people, they get the big bowl. I haven't been there in a long time, but I think they're a place that serves chips and salsa, and so you sit there and eat chips and salsa, and maybe have some beverages, and then you have an entree that you may or may not like. But it was really the chips and salsa that you went there. So what could be your strategy instead of going out to, a fast food restaurant? Perhaps it's, okay, what do you like about it? You like the chips and salsa. Well, you can make your own corn tortillas that don't have any oil. There's a couple on the market out there as well that's carried in local supermarkets. You can just open up a can of beans and wash those in some fresh salsa, and make yourself a quick nachos with the corn tortillas. Do a salad, and then again, blender some frozen fruit for a sorbet as a dessert. It can be really easy. You can get that on the table in 30 to 40 minutes, and it's easy, and your feet up. Most people spend 30 minutes trying to commute to and back from a restaurant, or at least, you're going to spend 30 minutes on the road. So the reality of it is, you can get in your comfortable clothes and have dinner with your family and not worry about a table, and talk among yourselves, and have a good evening. I like to look at 45-minute door-to-table food, especially if I'm tired during the week. And sometimes on Friday, I did a chickpea flour crepe this week. Literally chickpea flour and water, a little turmeric, made it thin, pan-fried that a couple minutes on a nonstick grill, stuffed it with spinach and mushrooms, put some salsa on top. 45 minutes, I was eating dinner. Same thing with the carrot dogs we talked about. If you marinate those the night before, you can put them in the Instant Pot after a dinner, take them out, put them in a bag with the marinade. Next day, when you come home, they're ready to roll. You have the tortillas. You can make those really quick. And, pull out some sauerkraut, some mustard, relish, and, perhaps a bowl of soup that you may have made in the Instant Pot earlier in the week. Again, 30-minute dinner. So, there's, if your story was that you couldn't get things done quickly, you can. You just have to think about them a little bit. And I hope that gave you a couple hints. I thought it was interesting that Brazil announced its nutritional guidelines, and it has a golden rule: always prefer natural or minimally processed foods, and develop culinary skills to prepare and cook your own meals as much as possible. Music to my ears. Get back in your house and back into your kitchen, back with your family, and sit at a table. One of the recommendations is actually sit down at a table and eat with others. It's a great way to discuss what's happened with your family, everybody's day, catch up, see what's going on, problem or troubleshoot, plan for the weekend. And get back in your own kitchen. The most important thing you have is your health, and trusting your health to some restaurant that has prepared foods with a million different ingredients, chemical experiments, grease, salt, oil on top of that, is really no way to become healthy. Some of their other things, they said, eat minimally processed food as the basis of your diet. Again, whole fruits, vegetables. Minimize oil, salt, and sugar. Finally, we don't need cooking oils to cook our food. We have skillets that the things don't stick to, and a little bit of water and other herbs and seasoning. We don't need salt. It's toxic to our blood vessels. There's plenty of sodium in food, and a few condiments, you're going to get enough. And, of course, we don't need sugar. It's toxic to our brain. So that was great. Limit processed foods such as canned foods, cheeses, highly processed breads and snacks and crackers. Avoid sugary cereal and fried noodles. Eat in a regular environment, as we said. Shop in natural stores, farmers market. If you support your local farmers market, you know where your food comes from. It's not as easy in the wintertime up north, but in the summer when you can, because your farmers, maybe even they're not completely organic, maybe as far as being certified, but they may raise a lot of food without pesticides. You can certainly get a lot more food for your dollar, and you start to see your food. Your kids start to see where their food comes from. It's a great thing. Exercise your cooking skills. It's a great way to learn to make new things, make a new ethnic dish. The weekend's perfect for this. Pick a recipe that you want to try. Maybe you've eaten out at a restaurant and you really like the food, then make it at home. Maybe you can make a healthier version at home. It's often what I do is I'll try to pick out if I'm traveling and I eat out, and I like a certain dish, then I'll try to pick out the spices and try to recreate it at home or create it with my twist. And if you do eat out, stay away from the joints that, all the food comes on a truck already prepared, and all people do is put salt and oil on it and throw it at you. You're worth more than just eating salty frozen food. And, be careful what's advertised to you. We get sucked into this is going to be healthy, that's going to be healthy. At lunchtime, a lot of times I'll throw on, look on my computer, and Apple News had on in their health section today keto pancakes. And the keto pancakes had flour and coconut milk and coconut cream and coconut oil, and it was almond flour. I mean, this was like highly dense, highly fat, high calorie dense foods with no fiber and no nutritional value, no antioxidants. Just because it's under a health label in some magazine or comes up on the computer does not mean something's going to be healthy. So, be careful from where you get your information and be skeptical. Look at the references. Where do these things come from? And then, speaking of scientific articles, in Nature magazine this week, a couple references on nitric oxide. From a cardiologist standpoint, nitric oxide is great because it dilates blood vessels. So if you have a blockage in a major blood vessel, blood flow gets around those blockages by opening up what we call these little collateral vessels. The spider webs around the big vessels, if you think about the side streets compared to the main streets and the main interstates, so that nitric oxide opens that up. So when we chew our greens, cabbage, cauliflower, collards, kale, Swiss chard, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, mixes with the bacteria in our saliva and amylase, and we create nitric oxide. But not only does it dilate our blood vessels in our heart and the blood flow to our brains and our legs, but also it helps with the communication between our neurons, preserving brain function. It stimulates our immune system to act appropriately, so, helping us fight off infections. So by eating these greens, we get, more than just antioxidants and phytonutrients to help us get better, but we also produce nitric oxide that works with our immune system. And of course, with exercise, it's been shown to dilate the artery muscles, so you increase your ability to take up oxygen by your muscles. It opens up the airways in your lungs. But this article in Nature magazine talked also about protecting the kidneys from damage when there's a lack of blood flow. With all the testing that's done out there these days, we want to test to find out what's wrong with us immediately. And one of the tests that are done without thinking are CAT scans. And CAT scans are done, and CAT scans typically are about the equivalent of 200 x-rays. So it's a tremendous amount of radiation. And then on top of that, there has to be some sort of contrast. And sometimes the contrast is in the vein, intravenous contrast, and sometimes it's oral contrast. Sometimes it's both. And that contrast is actually toxic to the kidneys. And so if somebody has a little bit of kidney impairment, it can actually put them over the edge and put them into full-blown kidney failure. And it's not uncommon for somebody to go to the hospital with one thing and get a CAT scan of the belly, and then maybe have a heart catheterization or have a carotid artery CAT scan. So these CAT scans are not without, they're not benign tests that we should just run out. What are you going to do with the information? Certainly if it's life-saving, something that, we need to know. Sometimes you have to take the risk. But you prepare for the risk. And, one of the ways to prepare for the risk is with nitric oxide producing vegetables. When you have decreased kidney function, eating nitric oxide, vegetables that help you to produce nitric oxide can actually repair the kidneys. And what happens inside the kidney is that energy is diverted, and some of the pathways that actually produce glucose in the kidneys are diverted. We go in, and the pathways are changed, so we produce different enzymes, and there's actually protection for the kidneys as far as blood flow. So, keep in mind, if you have poor kidney functions, you take the animal protein out of your diet, you're taking the pressure off your kidneys, and we know people's kidney function gets better. If you take the inflammation out of your body, your kidneys often get better, but also increasing the nitric oxide production can go a long way to improve kidney function. And we've seen it in all ages, from younger diabetics that improve their kidney function all the way up into people in their late 80s that improve their kidney function by eliminating meat, eating more plant-based and nitric oxide producing food. So it's never too late to get better. It's never too late to improve, the blood flow to your body, and your body will heal itself given the opportunity. And I think that's one of the best things that I like about, having a wellness practice that looks towards nutrition is that there's a lot of science behind how your body can heal itself given the right opportunity, and providing, by actually doing, eating plant-based foods, you're healing yourself and you're taking your health back. I had a couple come in this week, and I kind of have a chip on my shoulder when they talk about my nutrition class as a cooking class. And yeah, I think it's really important that people learn in my nutrition class how to prepare foods, not be afraid to try new spices and learn to prepare different dishes. But it's much, much more than turning on the stove and just following a recipe. It's what do those vegetables do? How are they put together to maximize the nutrition? And what's the science behind all this? Why are we doing it? So, every class I present some scientific, evidence, and we talk about how these things actually work, not just, here's a menu, go make this and eat it. The practicality of it is great. But there's so much more in nutrition class as far as, the support from other people and learning about other people's struggles, as well as what other people do, tricks of the trade. But again, knowing the science behind actually how to put things together, and why you want to eat certain foods together, and, how they can potentiate each other is really important. So, don't be afraid to cook at home and learn about the foods that you're cooking, and, think about it when you're actually preparing it. What are these foods doing, and how are they actually going to help me? How are they going to help me to recover from what's happened to me or prevent what could happen to me? I also don't think you need to get so uptight that you have to, you have a list of things that you have to ingest every day that you're so worried. People get worried about, am I getting enough protein? Am I getting too much fat? How many grams of carbohydrate should I have? How many pieces of fruit should I have? I think it's, keeping it simple and keeping it fun, and, exploring your taste buds is the way to go. Looking for color. I like to look at my food, and I like it to look good. And things look good if there's a lot of color and a lot of life to them. So in making something that looks good and is very colorful, chances are you're going to have all the nutrients that you need in it. And, and vary it up and change it up. Yeah, blueberries are really great, but so are cranberries, so are pomegranate seeds, so are grapes. So, to say you have to have these specifics and together every day is just not so. We want you to get a wide variety of nutrients, phytonutrients. And it depends on the time of the year. Some times of the year, things look better. Eat fruits and vegetables that are in season. They'll be more fresh. They'll have more nutrients. And you vary things. You don't get sick and you don't get in a rut. I'm a huge fruit lover. Everybody knows my favorite season is mango season. But I also like blueberry season, and that's coming up. We have loquats getting ready to come into season right now. They're like a yellow, kind of like a cherry that grow on trees down here. But, it's citrus season. So, eat what's in season and enjoy that fruit. And then when another one comes in, so you're not bored. I don't know that I could get bored with mangoes, but certainly, if you vary it up, then you appreciate the mangoes when you can't have them for a while, and you appreciate the melons when you haven't had them for a while, and you go to apples and pears, are good this time of year. So change things up. The root vegetables and hot soups are better this time of year. Taste good. So, get your root vegetables, and then you can eat lighter in the, in the summertime. I think the last thing I'm going to talk about is eating the real thing. So many times we like to cut corners or, maybe save a calorie here and eat something light. And one of the examples, we did a coconut curry today in class, and there's a couple different ways you can do a coconut, attack the coconut aspect of things. Obviously, coconut is very fatty, and if you buy coconut milk in a can, and it's not organic, you have a BPA line can, which is an estrogen stimulator that we don't want any part of that. If you want to cut down on the fat and you buy light coconut milk in a can, you still have the BPA unless it's organic, which is kind of hard to find. And you have a bunch of different additives and thickeners and preservatives. So to me, that's not a great idea. And then the next step is, what about coconut milk that's on the shelf? And we looked at that today, and there's a fair amount of fat, 40 calories, 4 grams of fat, so 36 out of the 40 calories are from fat. It's a cup, you can water that down, but, the lower calorie almond milk in a box that's on the shelf, typically in the cold section, has additives. They add some calcium, they add some B12, but they also add sunflower lecithin and gum gum and locust bean gum. And these are fairly benign additives, but they're additives. And do you really need that? Does your body doesn't really know what to do with these individual things. They're not a natural ingredient. So another option is to use coconut flakes or real coconut. So I put coconut in a blender with some water and make my coconut milk, or add some coconut extract to some almond milk or water, and do things that way. So try to keep things as natural as you can. Adding a real hot pepper as opposed to a condiment that's a pepper sauce can take out the sodium in something and reduce it a lot. So think about what you're doing as far as the additives and all the artificial ingredients, and maybe even take a day and you look at all the artificial ingredients that you consume, and no wonder your body doesn't know what to do with these things. So try to eat as many foods, to stick with the Brazilian guidelines that I think are great. Try to eat foods in their whole form. So if you want to have some coconut flavor, get coconut. And like I said, a little dried is okay, as well as the real coconut. Eat the real vegetables in the real form, and I think you'll be better off for it, and your body knows what to do with those nutrients, and you actually become full and satisfied a lot easier than trying to decipher through all these different additives. And the sodium adds up so much in some of these processed foods over time. So bottom line is, your health is your most important thing that you have, and everybody wants to be healthy, and nobody wants to have lifestyle diseases, and nobody wants to have to take medication. So take care of yourself, and don't trust your health and your nutrition to somebody else. And look at your food and eat the real thing, and I think you'll be better for it. So maybe that can be your first step or your first strategy for this week, is every day try to eat a little bit more whole foods, without being processed, without a bunch of additives in them. So why don't you give that a try this week? If you have any questions, email me at jami@drdulaney.com. It's JAMI@drdulaney.com. Again, go on drdulaney.com website and get your tickets for the conference. I'd love to meet you. Look me up at Thrill in the Hills in Atlanta next month if you're up there running. I'd love to see you there. And I wish you all a healthy, nutritious weekend and week, and get some exercise, move your body, and I'll talk to you next week.